Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. And also let me know where y'all are watching from and at what time. I'm curious. You'd be surprised how fast you can drive when your daughter's dying and some rich guy dangles $1 million in front of you like a carrot on a stick. I think I broke every speed limit from Cedar Falls to that godforsaken hilltop mansion. The truck wheezed like it had asthma, but it got me there. The place looked like every haunted house ever drawn by a bored kid with too many crayons. Sharp spires, ivy strangling the windows, a sky that seemed permanently set to impending thunderstorm. The wind was theatrical, like it had been waiting for someone dramatic to show up. I parked my rusted truck right next to the gleaming black Mercedes that probably cost more than my house. He was waiting for me on the front steps, slim, tidy. That kind of rich where the jacket probably cost more than your monthly rent. But somehow he still made it look casual. He smiled like he'd already won something. "You came," he said, like he thought I might back out. $1 million, 7 days, no ghost insurance, right? I asked, trying to sound casual. My fingers were white-knuckling the steering wheel. He chuckled. "Correct. Though if you do survive, you'll also have my gratitude. And the full cost of your daughter's treatment, no matter what." That was the line that did it, the one that landed the hook deep in my chest. My girl, Lila, she was all bones and bravery back home, hooked up to machines, barely able to smile anymore. I'd sold the house, the car, my wedding ring. Didn't matter. The treatment was experimental, and insurance said it wasn't viable. I told them I hoped their paperwork got paper cuts. I climbed out of the truck. "All right, let's do this. You got the paperwork?" He handed me a leather folder. Inside, a contract notarized, signed by him. It basically said if I died, he wasn't responsible, and if I survived, I'd walk away with enough money to buy a new life. There was a photo of his grandfather clipped inside. The old man looked like he'd been mad at the world for 70 years. "He left everything to me," the rich man said, "but stipulated that the curse had to be lifted first. That's where you come in." I raised an eyebrow. "Cursed how?" "No one has lasted 7 days here. They all die on the 7th night, not violently, just gone. We find them cold, eyes wide, as if they saw something they couldn't unsee." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "That's comforting." He didn't laugh. "You're doing this for the right reason. That matters more than you think." I signed the contract. My hand shook, but I did it, for her. The front doors groaned open on their own. Of course they did. A rush of cold air poured out like the house was sighing or maybe sniffing me. 7 days, he said. "Your belongings are already inside. I've left you food, batteries, and some notes from others who tried. You'll find the rules in the study." He didn't walk in with me, just turned and headed back to his car like he didn't want to be caught in the shadow of the place. I stood in the doorway a moment longer, thinking about Lila. How she once told me she wanted to be an astronaut, even though she got winded walking to the bathroom. "All right, haunted house," I muttered. "Let's dance." Inside, the air was musty and dry, like breathing in old paper. The chandelier above me was grand and dusty. The place had bones, I'll give it that. Marble floors, curved staircases, stained glass windows that threw red and green across the walls like broken Christmas. I wandered deeper, found the study. A fireless fireplace sat cold in the corner. On the desk was a heavy book. Not old exactly, just worn. A journal, multiple handwritings inside. The first page read, "Rules to survive, read carefully, obey completely." And beneath it, 11 lines. 11 strange, eerie, no thank you rules scribbled like warnings from the past. I read the first one. 1. Light the fireplace in the study every evening. I looked up at the cold hearth, then back at the book. "Well," I said aloud, "at least it's got central heating." And I got to work. I've stayed in worse places, I told myself, which wasn't exactly reassuring, because the last place I stayed in was a rusted-out camper behind a truck stop that sold expired sandwiches and dreams. But even that place had less personality than this mansion. The deeper I walked, the more it felt like the house was watching me. And I know how that sounds. Paranoid, dramatic, maybe even crazy. But the air moved differently in there, like the walls were breathing. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips like skin, and some of the paintings had eyes that didn't just follow you, they judged you. I walked past a portrait of a lady in a red gown, who looked like she could reach out and slap me if I smirked at the wrong time, and smirking was my defense mechanism, always had been. The journal sat heavy in my hand as I moved through the house. The rules were simple, but the implications, not so much. Here's what it said, all 11 of them. 1. Light the fireplace in the study every evening. 2. You may hear knocking from inside the walls. Ignore it. 3. If the grandfather clock chimes 13 times, hide beneath the table and don't breathe. 4. Do not open the door at the end of the west hallway. 5. The painting in the main hall will change. Don't comment on it. 6. If you see a little girl in blue, offer her sweet treat. If you don't, she'll take something else. 7. The pantry contains canned goods. Some whisper, don't eat those. 8. The ballroom music starts at midnight. Stay in your room. Do not dance. 9. If the lights flicker 3 times, lie down and pretend to sleep, no matter what. 10. Don't take the money from the briefcase in the master study. 11. On day 5, you'll start forgetting why you came. Keep a note in your pocket. Read it often. I read them once, twice. Took out my phone and snapped a picture just in case the journal pulled a Houdini. I chuckled under my breath. Okay, so don't breathe, don't dance, don't eat ghost food, and don't make friends with paintings. Got it. I tucked the journal into my coat and explored. The layout was like someone had mashed together 3 different blueprints while drunk. The halls didn't line up with the windows. Some doors opened to brick walls. One room was filled with clocks, all stopped at different times except for one in the center, ticking backward. Eventually, I found the kitchen, clean enough. Big old oven, long marble counters in that pantry. I opened it slowly, expecting cobwebs. Instead, neat rows of cans, jars, and preserves. I picked up a can of chili. It said pork and beans, but felt heavier than it should have. And then it whispered, not loudly, not even a word really, just a hushed hiss of breath like someone sighing against my ear. I dropped it like it bit me. Nope, 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 nope. Found a can of peaches that stayed blessedly silent and decided it'd be dinner. I didn't need gourmet. I needed food that didn't try to start a conversation. Next stop was the master bedroom. It was large, with velvet drapes that smelled like dust and guilt. A huge bed took up most of the space, and on the desk nearby sat a briefcase. Black, locked, shiny. I leaned in. A note was taped to it. Do not open. That one was easy. If there's one thing you don't do in a haunted house, it's disobey clearly written instructions, or poke mirrors, or say, who's there? But I digress. By the time the sun started dipping behind the hills, the whole mansion seemed to lean in around me, like it had been holding its breath all day, and could finally exhale now that night had come. I made my way back to the study, took a fire starter log, tossed it in the hearth, and lit it. Took a few tries, because of course it did, but the flames finally caught. They cast long shadows across the room that jittered like marionettes. I sat in the armchair, chewing cold peaches from the can, listening. For what, I didn't know. Knocking maybe, or dancing, or that damn clock. That was night 1. Nothing happened, yet. But the fire was still burning, and the rules were in my pocket. And somewhere out there, my daughter was waiting for me to come back, so I stayed. The sun didn't set. It dropped, like someone yanked the cord on a stage curtain and left the house wrapped in velvet black. One moment, the study window showed trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. The next, nothing but shadows. It was like watching color drain from the world. I glanced at the fireplace, still burning but flickering like it was second-guessing itself. I stood, stretched, and muttered, "All right, old house, show me what you've got." Spoiler, I regret saying that out loud. The moment I opened the study door, I heard it, knocking, soft, from inside the walls. 1 knock, pause, then 3 in quick succession like a rhythm, almost a pattern. I froze mid-step. Rule number 2 came to mind. You may hear knocking from inside the walls. Ignore it. That seemed simple enough, except it wasn't just knocking. It was deliberate, purposeful, like something wanted me to know it was there. Listening, maybe waiting. I didn't breathe, I didn't blink, and I didn't respond. Eventually the knock stopped. I exhaled and gave the wall a slow nod. That's right, just drywall, nothing behind there but bad plumbing and termites with an attitude. Back in the hallway, the chandelier above creaked with every step I took. Dust fell in little lazy spirals from its arms, catching the moonlight through the window. It looked like snow, or ash, maybe both. I headed to the kitchen for water, just water. I wasn't about to tempt fate with those whispering cans again, not unless I got desperate enough to eat ghost beans, and we weren't there yet. The kitchen light flickered once as I entered. Then again I watched, remembering rule number 9. If the lights flicker 3 times, lie down and pretend to sleep, no matter what. Flicker number 3 never came, just 2, like the house was teasing me, testing me. I swear if you flicker just once more while I'm holding this glass, we're gonna have words, I said to the ceiling. It didn't, probably because the house was smart and didn't want to get punched. Or maybe it was just winding up for something worse. On the way back upstairs, I passed the grandfather clock, big, ornate, the kind of thing you see in movies before someone dies in the next 10 minutes. Its hands were frozen at midnight, even though it was barely past 10. Dust layered thick across its face like it hadn't worked in decades. I gave it a side-eye. Don't even think about chiming 13, all right? I don't feel like crawling under a table while holding a water glass. The second I said it, the air changed. You know how people say you can feel a storm coming? Pressure drops, ears ring, your teeth get itchy. That happened, but inside the house. No lightning, no thunder, just a thick, invisible weight pressing down like a wet blanket made of dread. I bolted back to the study, nearly tripping over a corner of the rug. The fire was low but still lit. I tossed another log on just to be safe. Then I pulled the heavy chair in front of the hearth and sat down hard. I'm not scared, I muttered, just cautious, which is smart, fear-adjacent. Knocking started again, this time from behind the bookshelves. I didn't look, I didn't move, I just stared at the fire like it held the answers to everything. When the knocking stopped, something else started, the faint sound of music. Not loud, not clear, just a distant waltz, like a phonograph playing behind a closed door on the other side of the house. Violin, piano, something soft and eerie. It came and went in waves. I thought of rule number 8. The ballroom music starts at midnight. Stay in your room, do not dance. It wasn't midnight yet, and I wasn't in my room. Cool, I whispered. So we're starting early now. Great. I waited another hour, then another. The music didn't get louder, but it didn't stop either, like it was looping, or waiting for someone to join in. Eventually, I left the study and made my way to the bedroom. I checked the door twice, bolted it, shoved a chair beneath the handle just for good measure. Then I crawled under the blankets and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere far off, the clock ticked once, then twice. And just before I fell asleep, the music stopped, like it knew I was listening. The thing about a haunted house is it doesn't let you sleep easy. You don't rest so much as hover in a half-dream where every creak becomes a scream in disguise. It was sometime around 3 a.m. when I shot up in bed, heart pounding like I'd been dropped into cold water. I didn't know why. The room was quiet, too quiet. Even the wind outside had stopped. It was like the whole world had gone still to let something else walk through. And then, the first chime. I heard it echo through the house, deep, low, and metallic. Must be midnight, I muttered. Second chime, third. Normal enough, I told myself, just a very punctual ghost clock. Nothing to panic about. Fourth chime, fifth. My pulse picked up. I sat up straighter in bed. 6, 7, 8. You've got to be kidding me. 9, 10, 11. I was already out of bed, barefoot and breathless. Rule number 3 burning in my mind like a neon sign. If the grandfather clock chimes 13 times, hide beneath the table and don't breathe. 12. I bolted out the bedroom and into the hallway, nearly slipping on the polished floor. The house groaned, its wooden bones flexing like something inside was waking up. 13. The sound rattled my teeth. The hallway light went out. I sprinted for the dining room, the only place I remembered, with a long table that wasn't covered in dust and doom. The clock's chimes echoed one more time. A 14th? No, I was imagining it. Had to be. I dove under the table, scraping my knee on something sharp beneath it, probably an old nail or a vengeful fork. and pressed my back against the floorboards. My chest heaved. I slapped a hand over my mouth. Then I heard them, footsteps, not heavy ones, slow, deliberate, like whoever or whatever was walking didn't need to hurry. The boards didn't creak under it. They thudded, solid, predictable, closer. They stopped just outside the dining room. The air turned icy. My breath fogged up in the dark. I squeezed my eyes shut, even though I couldn't see a thing under that table. My body begged me to inhale, just once, just a quick breath, but I held it. A whisper floated down the hallway. I couldn't make out the words. It wasn't English, not exactly, more like the sound of a language trying to remember how to be spoken. Then came the dragging. Something long scraped across the floor behind the footsteps, like a shovel or a body, or both. It entered the room. I clenched my teeth. I could feel it standing there, just beyond the table, watching, waiting. My ribs ached from holding still. My lungs screamed. Then it moved. One slow circle around the table, deliberate, like it knew I was there, like it wanted me to crack. And then, without a sound, it stopped on the far side. That's when the table creaked, not the floor, the table. Something placed its weight on it from above, slow, almost curious. Wood groaned, dust fell onto my face, and then, just inches from my head, a single drop of water hit the floor. Drip. Ice cold. I opened one eye, just a sliver. A long finger, pale and soaked in black sludge, hung over the edge of the table above me. I nearly screamed. Instead, I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. The finger flexed, waited, and then, just like that, it was gone. The pressure lifted. The room lightened. The air filled with a faint warmth. I waited another full minute before moving. I crawled out from under the table, shaking. My legs barely worked. I limped back to the bedroom, shut the door, locked it, and pushed the dresser in front of it for good measure. Then I sat on the bed, breathing in short, shallow gasps. "Okay," I said aloud. "So that's what 13 sounds like. Definitely worse than expected." I checked my phone, still no signal. Of course. I lay back against the pillows, trying to calm myself. I'd followed the rule. I was still breathing. But from the way that thing had hovered above me, I had the sinking feeling it wouldn't mind giving me another 13 reasons to quit before the week was over. I woke up late on day 2, which felt like a small victory. Still alive, still sane, well, mostly. I stretched and groaned like a man twice my age and checked the rule book I'd stuffed in my coat pocket. Yep, rule number 3 was still there, bold as ever. If the grandfather clock chimes 13 times, hide beneath the table and don't breathe. I should have added also maybe invest in adult diapers. After a lukewarm instant coffee and a granola bar that tasted like despair, I decided to explore more of the house. Not out of curiosity. Curiosity gets you killed in places like this, but out of necessity. I needed to know what other rules were about to try and murder me. That's when I passed through the main hall again. The morning light, or what passed for it, was filtering through the stained glass windows, casting a soft kaleidoscope across the floor. And there, right in the center above the grand staircase, was that painting. It hadn't changed. Not yet. Yesterday it was a stern-looking man in a high-collared coat, presumably the rich guy's grandfather, big white beard, eyes like he judged everything you'd ever done, including that one time you microwaved fish at work. I gave it a glance and walked by, but something felt off. I turned back. The man's mouth was open. Yesterday he'd had a tight-lipped grimace. Today, open, mid-scream. The paint strokes looked fresh, wet almost. His eyes were wider, like he'd just realized something too late, like he was watching something behind me. I didn't turn around. Instead, I squinted at the painting and muttered, "All right, buddy, you win creepiest family portrait. Congratulations." Then I remembered rule number 5. The painting in the main hall will change. Don't comment on it. I stood there frozen, replaying the last 10 seconds in my head. "Does muttering count?" I asked the air. Technically, I congratulated him. That's polite. No answer, which honestly was scarier than a voice telling me yes. I backed away slowly, refusing to take my eyes off it. Once I was around the corner, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The rest of the house was mostly empty rooms filled with antique furniture and the occasional weird statue. One of them, a bronze angel with outstretched wings, was missing its face. Just a smooth, featureless plate where the eyes and mouth should have been. I didn't ask questions. I just closed the door and added statue room to the mental list of places I wouldn't be visiting again. In the kitchen, I tried to find more food. Most of the cans whispered. One of them actually moaned when I picked it up, which I took as a firm, no thank you. I finally found a silent can of tomato soup and popped it open. Lunch was warm, bland, uneventful. That was enough for me. After that, I sat in the study again, lit the fireplace, just in case rule number 1 was on a schedule. I spent the afternoon writing a note to myself as a backup plan for rule number 11, something short and simple. You're here to save Lila, don't forget. $1 million, 7 days, no ghosts allowed. I folded the note and slid it into my pocket. I patted it for reassurance every few minutes, like a charm, like a reminder that I wasn't just some idiot squatting in a horror novel for fun. When night fell again, faster than it had any right to, I checked the painting one more time before locking myself in the bedroom, still screaming. But now his eyes were bleeding, thin red lines dripping down the canvas. I closed the door without a word. Later, I found myself staring at the ceiling, waiting for something to happen. No music, no clock chimes, just silence. That oppressive, waiting kind of silence, like a storm holding its breath. I almost missed the knocking, but it never came. Instead, the air stayed still. The fire in the study never flickered. And the rules in my pocket felt heavier, like they were soaking up every second I was still alive. I didn't sleep much that night. I just listened to nothing, and somehow that was worse. It started with the sound of giggling, not the creepy, echoing kind you hear in movies. This was soft, almost shy, the kind you might hear from a kid playing hide and seek, and it was coming from the top of the stairs. I was in the main hall again, sipping what passed for coffee from a chipped porcelain cup I'd found in the kitchen. The painting was still in full freak-out mode, mouth agape, eyes red, possibly judging my breakfast. But I didn't look at it for long. The giggling made my skin crawl. Rule number 6 popped into my brain like a flare. If you see a little girl in blue, offer her sweet treat. If you don't, she'll take something else. I didn't move. The giggling came again. Closer now. I turned my head slowly. There she was, at the top of the grand staircase in a soft blue dress, hair in loose curls and tiny bare feet. Her eyes were too wide, her head tilted just a little too far to the left, like a puppet with one string pulled too tight. And she was looking right at me. I fumbled for my jacket pocket, heart racing. Thankfully, I'd already stuffed a couple of old hard candies from my truck into my coat the day before. Peppermints, wrapped, slightly melted. I'd meant to toss them, but I guess haunted house prep involves being a weird candy hoarder. I unwrapped one and held it out in my open palm like I was offering a treat to a stray dog. She didn't move, just stared. The silence stretched. Then, without walking, she was 5 steps closer. I nearly dropped the candy. She blinked, took one more step, then slowly descended the rest of the way like a normal child again. Except nothing about her felt normal. Her dress had faint dark stains near the hem. Her hands were too pale. Her nails looked not sharp but unfinished. She stood in front of me, no taller than my waist, and looked at the candy in my hand. I didn't say a word. She reached out, took it carefully with her fingertips, then popped it into her mouth. No chewing, no crinkle of the wrapper, just gone. She looked up at me again and smiled. It wasn't evil, it wasn't warm either. It was the kind of smile that makes you want to cry and you don't know why. Then she vanished. Not ran, not walked away, just gone. One blink and the hall was empty again. I didn't move for a full minute. When I finally turned around, the painting had changed again. The man's face was half missing, like it had been wiped away. The rest of him was melting off the canvas in oily streaks. I backed away from the wall. "You know what?" I said out loud. "I think I'm going to go read a book." Back in the study, the fire was still going. I checked the journal again. No new rules had appeared, thankfully, but someone had scrawled something in the margin of rule number 6. She smiles when she gets her treat. When she doesn't, the walls bleed. Cool, not terrifying at all. The rest of the day passed in a strange, tense quiet. I kept thinking about that girl, about how empty her eyes looked, like something had been scooped out long ago and forgotten. That night I left another peppermint on the stairs before locking myself in the bedroom. I don't know if she came back. I didn't hear anything, but in the morning, the candy was gone, and my pillow was turned upside down. That was new. But at least there was no blood, no whispering, no knocking, just that same silent dread. Building, waiting, like the house was holding its breath again. It was a little after 11 p.m. when I started getting that crawling feeling in my spine again, like cold ants under the skin, the kind of feeling you don't get unless something's about to go very wrong. The house had been calm all day, which honestly made me more nervous than if it had tried to eat me. No knocking, no paintings changing, no whispering food, just waiting, watching, like the place was coiling up for a punch, and I had a pretty good idea what was coming. Rule number 8, the ballroom music starts at midnight. Stay in your room, do not dance. At the time, that seemed oddly specific and weirdly polite. Please, no dancing. But now, with that silence pressing in like a weight, it sounded more like a threat dressed up in a tuxedo. I'd barricaded myself in the bedroom with the dresser, chair, and an old trunk I'd found full of moth-eaten suits. I'd even wedged a coat hanger under the doorknob for good measure. Then I checked my watch. 11:52 p.m. I turned out the lights, sat on the bed, and waited. At exactly midnight, the music began. It was faint at first, soft piano chords and the distant swell of violins. A waltz, beautiful, haunting, and very much not the kind of music you want to hear at night while locked inside a mansion built before indoor plumbing was a thing. The sound didn't come from upstairs or the hallway. It rose up from below, through the floorboards, like the house itself was playing it. I closed my eyes, hoped it would pass, but then the beat picked up. The violin grew sharper, livelier, and that's when the footsteps started. Soft, measured, padded, like dozens of feet gliding in perfect time. I swear I could hear the rustle of dresses, the shuffle of dress shoes. I even heard faint laughter, joyful, polite, the kind you might hear at a wedding reception right before the bride starts floating off the ground. My hand found my pocket. I squeezed the note I'd written, "You're here to save Lila, don't forget." I whispered it to myself like a prayer. Then something brushed the wall behind my head. I flinched and turned. Nothing there, just the wallpaper peeling at the edges like it wanted to tell me a secret. Then came the knock, not at the front door, not on the walls, on my door. 3 soft knocks. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I thought of rule number 9, just in case. If the lights flicker 3 times, lie down and pretend to sleep. The light didn't flicker, but the music got louder. The knock came again, this time with a soft voice behind it. A woman, elegant, formal, and unsettlingly cheerful. "Won't you join us?" Her tone was all politeness, like a stranger offering you cookies she'd definitely poisoned. "Come now," she said again, tapping lightly. "You'll love the waltz." I said nothing. I didn't even blink. My mouth had gone dry. The doorknob rattled, then again, then stopped. A pause. Then came a sound that haunts me even now, the dragging of a hand across the door, slow. Fingertips running down the wood like she was savoring it, or testing it. Then silence. The music went on. Another song began, faster, more chaotic. The laughter became manic, harsher. It wasn't a ball anymore. It was a frenzy. I stayed frozen in place, holding on to the note and staring at the door like it might grow teeth. I don't know how long it went on. Time melted away with the music, but eventually, mercifully, the sounds faded. First the laughter, then the strings, then finally, silence. I didn't move for another hour. When I finally did, I crawled into bed like a man twice my age, eyes darting around the room like the shadows might take offense if I stared too long. Just before I drifted off, I swore I heard one last piano note, sharp, right beside my ear. I woke up the next morning with my blankets folded perfectly, and a single black glove placed neatly on my pillow. I didn't touch it, just threw it into the fireplace, and lit another match. I woke up on the floor. No memory of how I got there. No blanket, just me, my coat, and the note I'd stuffed in my pocket now crumpled under my cheek like a makeshift pillow. My head throbbed, my mouth was dry, and my knees ached like I'd gone 12 rounds with the stairs. I sat up slowly and blinked at the empty bed. Did I sleepwalk? Had something moved me? I checked the door, still bolted. Chair still jammed under the knob. The dresser unmoved. No signs of forced entry, no scratches, no ominous messages scrawled in blood. But something had changed. The mirror above the dresser had a crack running straight down the center, thin, delicate, but sharp enough to catch the morning light like a knife's edge. I hadn't noticed it before, and I'd stared into that mirror a lot over the last few nights, mostly to see if I still looked like me. Spoiler, I didn't. I looked older, gaunter. My skin was pale and my eyes had taken on this hollow, deep-set look. The kind you see on war veterans and retail workers during holiday sales. I pressed a hand to the glass. It was cold, warmer than it should have been. Something shimmered beneath the surface. I stepped back. Nope, not today, mirror. Go haunt someone else. I left the bedroom and made my way downstairs. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Again. Even the floorboards had stopped creaking. It felt less like a house and more like a trap waiting to spring. In the kitchen, I checked the pantry for anything edible. Most of the cans were whispering nonsense, things like, "Don't forget the teeth," or "He's still hungry." Real 5-star service. I found a quiet tin of peaches, again. They were becoming my comfort food. Apparently, when ghosts whisper from your walls, you turn to canned fruit. Back in the study, I lit the fireplace early. The flames crackled like they were glad to be awake. The warmth helped, but not much. The cold in that house wasn't from drafts. It was in the bones. I sat down with the journal again, rereading the rules. I must have gone over them 20 times by now, but today I noticed something new. A 12th rule. It hadn't been there before. 12. Don't follow the reflections, that's all it said. No explanation, no scribbled notes in the margin, just that one line in newer handwriting. I stood up fast, nearly knocking over the chair. There were mirrors everywhere in that house, in the halls, above mantels, on the wardrobe doors, and now they were a problem. I grabbed a towel and covered the one in the study. I made a note to do the same for the others, room by room. I wasn't about to play hide-and-seek with whatever liked to lurk in reflective surfaces. I headed back into the hall. That's when I noticed something else. The house had shifted. The painting was still there, but the hallway past it didn't look the same. It was longer, much longer, stretching farther than it should have, with too many doors and not enough light. I walked a few steps and passed a window, but outside wasn't outside. Instead of the lawn, trees, or even sky, it was just dark. A moving fog, swirling and pressing against the glass like it wanted in. I backed away. Rule number nothing. If the window shows something impossible, stop walking. That became my personal amendment. I returned to the study and grabbed my notebook. I started a checklist. Cover all mirrors. Do not walk down stretched hallways. Keep pockets stocked with candy. Don't look directly at paintings. Stay alive, preferably with limbs intact. That night, the house didn't make a sound. No knocking, no music, no footsteps. But I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The note in my pocket, the one that said, "You're here to save Lila," had been rewritten. Same handwriting, same paper, different words. "Why are you here?" I didn't sleep that night. I tried. Trust me, I did. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw fog pressing against windows that shouldn't exist and heard the faint rustle of a dress across ballroom floors. So I sat in the corner of the bedroom with my coat draped over me like a makeshift blanket and the note in my hand. I hadn't rewritten it. Not yet. I didn't want to give the house the satisfaction. The morning sunlight, or whatever passed for it in this place, filtered in weakly through the window. The light was dim, not gray exactly, but drained, like someone had taken the color out of the world and left it running in black and white. I knew where I had to go next, the west hallway, the one with that door. Rule number 4, do not open the door at the end of the west hallway. To be honest, I didn't want to go anywhere near it, but the hallway had been calling to me since yesterday. I don't mean that in a poetic, tortured soul kind of way. I mean literally, it whispered. At first I thought it was wind, but the windows were shut. Then I thought it was rats. But rats don't say your name. So I decided to get ahead of the problem. I wasn't going to open the door. I just wanted to see it. Scope it out, maybe block it off, put a chair in front of it and pretend that was enough. I walked the long route through the house, avoiding every mirror and window. The mansion had grown unfamiliar again. The halls didn't match up. Staircases led to rooms I didn't recognize, but eventually I found the West Hall. It looked like every Gothic corridor you've ever seen in a horror movie. Long, narrow, lined with crooked portraits and candelabras that somehow still burned without wax. The wallpaper here was darker than the rest of the house, faded burgundy, streaked like old blood, and at the end stood the door. It was black. Not painted black, black, like someone had cut a hole in the world and filled it with shadow. No knob, no hinges, just a frame and the door, as if it had been welded in place by fear itself. I crept forward, slowly. Every step made the floor groan like it didn't approve of my curiosity. When I was close enough, I could feel it, cold. The kind of cold that doesn't belong in summer, the kind that lives in deep water and old graves. It rolled off the door in waves. My breath fogged in front of me, and then the whispering started, soft. "Open it." I backed away, another voice, different this time. "Come inside." Then another, high-pitched, Lila's voice. "Daddy." I froze. That wasn't fair. The house wasn't just playing dirty, it was going for the jugular. I shut my eyes, gripped the note in my hand until my knuckles went white. The one I'd rewritten that morning, just in case. "You're here to save Lila. The door lies." When I opened my eyes, the door hadn't moved, but the voices were gone. I took a deep breath and looked around. I spotted an old coat rack, dragged it down the hall, and jammed it sideways in front of the door. Not perfect, but symbolic. A little no thanks sign made out of desperation and oak. Then I turned and walked away. And for the first time since I entered the house, I heard laughter. Not cruel, not ghostly, just a light giggle echoing from down the stairs. The girl in blue? No reply, just a peppermint on the floor at the base of the steps. I picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, then tucked it in my coat pocket like a thank you. Back in the study, I sat down and lit the fire early. The pages of the journal fluttered as the wind picked up outside. I flipped to the rule page. Still 11 rules, still bold. But now someone had underlined number 4, heavily, and beneath it, in jagged handwriting, one new sentence had been added. If you open the door, they all get out. Day 5 started, fuzzy. I woke up in the hallway, not my room, not the study, just sprawled on the hardwood floor like someone had gently set me there, or maybe dropped me mid-haunting. The light coming through the window was wrong, yellow but dull, like a fake sunrise in a bad dream. I sat up, rubbed my temples, and tried to remember how I got there. Nothing, not a dream, not a blank, just missing. Then it hit me. I didn't know why I was here. My heart skipped, my breath caught. Why was I in this house? Why was I sleeping on a floor that probably hadn't seen a mop since the Civil War? I stood up fast, which was a mistake. The world tilted, my vision blurred. The hall stretched on forever in both directions. I reached into my coat pocket out of instinct and felt it. The note, crinkled, slightly damp. But there. I unfolded it and read, "You're here to save Lila. Don't forget, $1 million, 7 days, no ghosts allowed." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Lila, my daughter, brown hair, big eyes. Favorite bedtime story was about a talking spoon that wanted to be a sword. She loved peaches, hated hospitals, and she was sick. So sick. I had almost forgotten her face. That scared me more than anything else in this house. The note shook in my hand. I read it again, then again. The memories started trickling back like a faucet slowly unclogging. The truck, the rich man, the contract, the rules, the mansion. I shoved the note back into my pocket like it was life support and stumbled toward the study. On the way, I passed a mirror in the hallway I didn't remember seeing before. This one was cracked down the center, just like the one in my room. And I swear, for just a second, the man looking back at me wasn't me. He had my face, but older, eyes black, mouth open like he was screaming underwater. I didn't stick around to debate it. Back in the study, the fire had gone out. Cold air pooled in the corners of the room. I lit it again, but it took 3 matches. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the lighter. Then I sat down in the big armchair and just breathed. I reread the journal. Rule number 11 stared back at me. On day 5, you'll start forgetting why you came. Keep a note in your pocket. Read it often. Whoever wrote that rule. They weren't joking. The house was doing something to me, to my mind, slowly, gently, like a frog in boiling water, and I was starting to boil. I dug out a second slip of paper and rewrote the same message in bigger letters. Lila, you're here for her. Don't trust the house. Don't eat. Don't dance. Don't open doors. Don't talk to reflections. I made 3 copies, one for my pocket, one taped to the inside of my jacket, one shoved inside my boot. That's how bad it had gotten. Every few hours I checked them, read them aloud, tried to memorize every syllable. That night, while pacing near the study door, I saw something awful. The painting in the main hall had changed again. It was me. Not exactly me, but close. Same jacket, same messy hair, but the eyes were wrong, wide, bloodshot. And the figure in the painting was holding up a piece of paper. I stepped closer. It read, "You already forgot. She's gone." I nearly tore it off the wall, but I didn't. Rule number 5 still held, don't comment on the painting. So I walked away, heart pounding, the note in my pocket burning like it had caught fire. I repeated the words under my breath all the way back to the bedroom. You're here to save Lila. You're here to save Lila. You're here to save Lila. The hallway lights flickered once, twice. I stopped, waited. They didn't flicker a third time, not tonight, but I stayed up anyway, watching the note in my hand, afraid it might change when I blinked. The mansion wasn't just trying to scare me anymore, it was trying to erase me. Technically, it was day 6, but I was calling it day 4. Why? Because when I woke up that morning and checked the calendar I'd scratched into the wallpaper, 2 whole days were missing, just gone. No memory, no dreams, no clue. The fireplace had been lit. There was an empty soup can on the study table, silent, thank God, and my boots were muddy even though I hadn't stepped outside. I also had a new bruise on my side that looked suspiciously like a shoe print. So, yeah, day 4, for my own sanity. The house was different again. I don't mean in the usual way, stretchy halls, vanishing rooms. I mean, it didn't want to be found. Every door led to the same hallway. I walked for 30 minutes, turning right, left, doubling back, climbing stairs, descending them. No matter what I did, I always ended up in the same corridor, the one with the crooked grandfather clock. It had stopped ticking entirely now, just sat there mocking me with its dead silence. The hand stuck at 11:59, like it knew I'd been under that table 2 nights ago, shaking like a leaf, and it couldn't wait to try again. I didn't speak, didn't curse, didn't challenge it, just kept walking. Eventually, I made it to a room I hadn't seen before, or maybe I had, who knows at this point. It was a small study with dusty bookshelves and one single chair facing the wall. On the chair, a leather-bound diary. I opened it. First page, day 1, noises in the walls. Rules seem simple enough. Second page, day 2, saw the girl, gave her gum, hope that counts. Third, day 3, forgot who I was, note helped, barely. Fourth, day 4, the painting smiled at me. I smiled back. That was a mistake. The entries got shakier after that, some pages torn out, others smeared with ink and something reddish-brown I really didn't want to identify. The final entry was written in jagged, almost frantic lettering. The walls move now, they breathe, they listen. I saw my face in the window. It wasn't mine. I think I'm still in here, somewhere. Underneath a postscript, if you find this, remember your reason. Don't look at the painting and never answer the door at 3:03 a.m. I flipped the book shut, backed out of the room, marked the door with a broken piece of chalk I found on a shelf. I didn't know what good it would do, but it made me feel less like a rat in a maze and more like a rat with some sense of direction. On my way back, I checked the painting in the main hall. Big mistake. It hadn't just changed. It had expanded. The frame was larger somehow. The edges had bled into the wallpaper. The figure in the painting still looked like me, but now it was moving. The painted figure was knocking on the inside of the canvas. Slow, steady, knock, knock, knock. I didn't say a word. Just turned and walked calmly, very calmly, back to the study. Lit the fire again, sat down, and stared at the journal on the desk like it might offer an escape hatch. It didn't, but it had a new note tucked under the cover. Small paper, burnt at the edges, handwritten, not mine. "They like you, that's not a good thing." I laughed, loud, abrupt, and a little too long. Then I folded the paper neatly and added it to my growing collection of haunted Post-its. That night I didn't sleep. Not because something was banging or singing or dancing. No, that would have been expected. I didn't sleep because the walls breathed. In, out, all night. Like the house was alive, and I was stuck inside its lung. It started with a soft knock, barely audible, like someone tapping a fingernail against wood from the inside of a closet 2 rooms over. I was sitting in the study again, because that was the one room in the house that still felt somewhat tethered to reality. As long as the fire was lit, the rules seemed to hold, mostly. The knock came again, closer this time. I looked at the fireplace, flames flickering steady. That was good. I checked the clock on the wall. 10:14 p.m., not midnight, not 3:03 a.m., no rules triggered. Yet. Then came another knock. Louder, right behind the bookshelves. Rule number 2. You may hear knocking from inside the walls. Ignore it. Easier said than done when the knocking isn't just inside the walls. It's moving. The sound crept left to right, then back, then stopped. And then the bookshelf shifted, just a little. I stared at it, refusing to blink. One of the books, something thick and leather-bound, tipped forward as if pushed by invisible fingers. I stood up slowly. I didn't touch the shelf, didn't speak. Then came a slam, boom, from the floor above me. I jumped hard enough to knock over the chair, another slam and another. Panic twisted in my gut. The house was stomping, not creaking, not settling, stomping like something huge was moving across the second floor, one thunderous step at a time. I backed away from the shelves, sat down, lit another fire log I didn't need. Another knock. This one came from below the floor. I stood up so fast my knee cracked. The sound was rising. Walls, ceiling, floor. It was everywhere now. Like the house was knocking from all directions at once, trying to ask a question it had no mouth to say. And then, silence, complete. No creaks, no footsteps, no groaning floorboards, just the fire popping softly. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I said, trying to sound like someone who hadn't just aged 10 years in 10 seconds. "So we're done knocking? Good, great, keep up the quiet. Love the new energy." That's when the floor buckled, right in front of the fireplace, like something punched up from below. A tile cracked, then another. I stepped back, heart hammering. Another thud. The wooden beam beneath the rug bent, groaned, and something, pressed upward against the floorboards. It didn't break through. Not fully, just left a bulge, like a handprint made of pressure and hate. I didn't wait to see what came next. I grabbed the poker from beside the fire and ran, through the hall, past the staircase, down the corridor where the grandfather clock waited, still stuck at 11:59. I slammed the bedroom door behind me, jammed the dresser against it, and sat on the floor with the poker across my lap like I knew how to use it. There was nothing for the rest of the night. No knocks, no music, just the occasional sound of something breathing beneath the house. Deep, wet, slow. I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared at the wallpaper, which had started peeling into shapes that vaguely resembled faces. Some looked like mine, some didn't. Morning eventually came, dragging gray light through the windows like a half-hearted apology. I crawled to my feet, stiff and sore, checked my pocket. Note was still there. "You're here to save Lila, don't forget." I read it out loud, voice hoarse. Then I noticed something written on the bedroom wall in charcoal smudges. It hadn't been there last night. "We're almost in." And beneath that, "Knock, knock." I don't know what day it really was. I called it day 5 because the rules said I'd start forgetting things by then, and forgetting felt like the right word for everything. Names, faces, why I came. Even Lila's voice, soft and warm and so full of life, was starting to feel like something I'd imagined in a dream I couldn't quite hold on to. But that morning I remembered. The note in my pocket helped. So did the newer one I'd taped to the mirror above the dresser. It was crude, written in Sharpie on the back of an old receipt, but it said what needed saying. She is real, get out alive. Simple, direct, screamed with love. I recited it 3 times and left the room. I needed to check the master study. There was something there I hadn't touched, hadn't dared to even look at directly since day 1, the briefcase. Rule number 10, don't take the money from the briefcase in the master study. No problem. I wasn't greedy. I was desperate, sure, but not stupid. Still, something about the day felt heavy, like the air was thicker, the light darker, the house quieter but with a silence that trembled, like it didn't want to hold itself together anymore. I stepped into the study. The fire had gone out, again. And the briefcase? It was open, wide open, sitting perfectly centered on the desk, not tipped, not disturbed, just waiting. I froze. The bills inside were neatly stacked, bundled, crisp, so fresh they might have been printed yesterday, all glowing slightly gold in the low light. And on top of the stack, resting so gently it made my skin crawl, was a photograph. Lila, smiling, bald from chemo, dressed in her favorite pajamas with the smiling stars, holding the stuffed dinosaur I'd bought her when she was 4. She looked happy, whole, alive. "Daddy," her voice whispered behind me. I turned so fast I nearly fell over. Nothing there, just the dusty bookshelves, and the sound of the wind shifting wrong. I looked back at the desk. Now there were 2 photographs. The second one was me. Dead. Eyes open, pale, slumped in the armchair by the fire, the same coat, the same tear in the sleeve I hadn't noticed until now. My stomach twisted. I backed away slowly. The rules were clear. Don't take the money. But I hadn't touched it. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't even want to look at it anymore. The fire needed relighting. I reached for the matches. That's when I heard her again. "Please," Lila's voice begged. "You can take it, Daddy. I'm so tired." That cracked me. For a split second, I reached for the briefcase. My fingers touched the leather, and the lights in the room died. Not flickered. Died. Gone. Dark. Then I felt it. A hand gently touching the back of my neck. Cold, thin, heavy as stone. I froze. The briefcase snapped shut. Click. The lights came back on. The study looked the same, but the photographs were gone. I dropped to the floor, hands shaking, heart hammering like a drum solo from hell. I stayed there for a long time. Eventually, I crawled to the fireplace and lit it again. The flames hissed like they were angry at me for even thinking about breaking the rule. The heat didn't help. I still felt cold, colder than before, because the house didn't just try to scare me that time. It tempted me, and it almost won. I'm not proud of this, but I slept in the empty bathtub that night. Not because it was safer. Nothing in this house qualifies as safe. But because the last time I tried sleeping in a bed, I woke up in a hallway with the painting smirking at me and a new note taped to my forehead that said, "Nice try." The tub had cold porcelain, a solid view of the only door, and no mirrors. 3 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend, but I'd book it again in a panic. When morning came, I climbed out like a crab with a hangover, ate a can of peaches, silent thank you very much, and tried to psych myself up for what I'd now begun referring to as the final boss level. Day 6. I could feel it in my bones. Something was different. The house was waiting. The silence was thicker. Not the nothing's happening kind, but the your executioner is picking a weapon kind. Still, I lit the fireplace, paced the study like an anxious dad in a delivery room, and ran through the checklist in my head. Candies? Check. Note about Lila? Triple check. Emergency sarcasm reserves, running low but holding. Around midday I heard it. Footsteps. Not the creaky kind that disappear when you turn your head. No, these were real, solid, deliberate. I pressed my ear to the door, closer, steady, not dragging like the other things I'd heard. These sounded like actual boots on old wood. Then came the knock, one single polite knock on the study door. I backed up, grabbed the fireplace poker, and raised it like I was about to defend my honor in the world's worst duel. A voice spoke, male, calm, friendly, which was exactly why it made my blood run cold. "Mr. James Carter, may I come in?" No one had called me that since the hospital, not even the rich guy who offered me this job, and definitely not the house. So yeah, alarms were ringing in my head like I was trying to break into Fort Knox. I didn't answer. The voice continued, a bit softer this time. "We've been watching your progress. You're doing remarkably well. Only 1 day left. Impressive," I swallowed. "Okay," I said under my breath. "So either the ghost has gone corporate or I've cracked and the taxman followed me here." Then the voice said something that made me freeze. "We could make this easier, you know. No more rules, no more fear. We'll cure your daughter, give you peace. All you have to do is open the door." I blinked. "Wow," I muttered. "That's some prime villain dialogue. What's next, a PowerPoint presentation and a signing bonus?" He laughed. It was soft, genuine, like I just made a clever joke at a dinner party, not while trapped in a house where the furniture breathes. "I like you, James. You're different. That's rare." "Yeah, I get that a lot," I said. "Mostly from people trying to sell me vitamins." The silence on the other side of the door stretched too long. Then he said, "You'll open it eventually. They all do." "Nope," I replied. "You're going to be disappointed. I'm too stubborn to die and too broke to quit." More silence. Then the footsteps moved away. I stood there a long time, poker still in hand, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. Later, when I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty, except for one thing, a rose, fresh, red, lying in the middle of the hallway like an apology. I picked it up, half expecting it to whisper something evil. It didn't, just sat there in my palm, soft and real. And attached to the stem was a note. "One more night." I placed the rose on the study mantel, gave it a nod, and said, "Thanks, but next time just send a fruit basket." Then I locked the door behind me and sat by the fire with my back to the wall. Because if this was their idea of a gift, I didn't want to see what they considered a party favor. I was just about to doze off in the study armchair when I heard it. Chime. No big deal. Probably the old grandfather clock doing what grandfather clocks do. Chime. Fine. I figured I'd count them. Maybe it was actually midnight, which in this house was a real roll of the dice. Chime 3. Still fine. I've lived through worse. Like gas station sushi at 1 a.m. But then it kept going. 4, 5, 6. I bolted upright. "Not again," I muttered. 7, 8, 9. I was halfway to the hallway when the fire behind me dimmed, just a little, like someone had taken a breath and sucked the warmth right out of the room. 10, 11. I ran. The hallway was longer than usual. I'm not exaggerating. The rug stretched like taffy, and the shadows on the walls stretched with it. The grandfather clock waited at the end, exactly where I didn't want it to be. Chime 12. I dove into the nearest room, not the dining room this time. Someone, probably me in a panic, had flipped the table upside down last night, and it looked like a war zone. Instead, I ducked into what used to be a servant's quarters and rolled under the low wooden bed. Dust bunnies, spider webs, possibly an entire haunted raccoon family under there, but I didn't care. I curled up, held my breath, and waited. Chime 13. The air went thick. Every sound in the house stopped, even the wind, even the fire, even my thoughts. Then came the movement, heavy steps like boots made of stone and regret, clomped down the hallway outside the room. Whatever it was big, too big. The floor groaned beneath it, and the door to the servants' quarters creaked open slowly. I watched from under the bed as 2 bare feet stepped into the room. Gray, swollen, wet. One of the toenails was cracked down the center. I wanted to gag. But rule number 3 came back like a lifeline. If the grandfather clock chimes 13 times, hide beneath the table and don't breathe. I hoped under the bed was an acceptable substitute. The feet moved closer, stopped just inches from my face. Then the figure dropped to the ground, belly first, like a sack of meat. I clenched every muscle I had. Its face appeared sideways, eye level with mine, except it didn't have eyes. Just dark holes, where eyes should have been. No mouth, no nose. Just that void-like stare. It stared at me for a full minute. Then it sniffed. A long, wet inhale like it was trying to smell me. It twitched, spasmed, then giggled high and sharp like a child pretending to be human. And then it crawled under the bed with me. I almost screamed. Instead, I reached for the only thing I had, the note in my pocket. I pressed it to my chest like it was armor. "You're here to save Lila. Don't forget." The creature froze. Its head twitched toward the paper like it had heard it. Then with a sudden jolt, it hissed and vanished. No smoke, no flash, just gone. I stayed under that bed for another 10 minutes, eyes wide, lungs aching, heart making arrangements for an early retirement. When I finally crawled out, the clock had stopped chiming. I walked back to the hallway, legs jelly, hands shaking. The grandfather clock now read 1:06. I passed it without looking too closely. Back in the study, the fire had gone out. A single match fixed that. And on the mantel beside the rose from earlier, I noticed something new. A folded napkin. I opened it. Inside was a child's drawing. Crayon, sloppy, heartfelt. It was Lila, me, holding hands on a beach. The same drawing she gave me right before her last treatment. I didn't put that napkin in my coat pocket, but it was here now. And I wept, not out of fear this time, but because it reminded me exactly why I couldn't fail. The morning came without sunlight, just a gray wash, like someone had dimmed the brightness on reality. The kind of day where even ghosts probably needed coffee. I sat in the study with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders like a bad wizard cape, staring into the fire and trying not to unravel. The drawing of Lila sat on the mantel, edges curling from the heat. I wasn't sure if it was a sign, a reward, or a taunt. Could have been all three. I stood, stretched, and decided I needed to move. Sitting still too long in this place made the walls lean in, like they were listening for weak spots. The hallway was unusually quiet. No footsteps, no giggles, no moaning from the pantry, which I had now officially padlocked shut using a broken belt and a cabinet handle. But the mirrors? They'd changed. Every single one I passed had a fresh crack. Same angle, same direction, like lightning had struck them all at once. And behind the cracks I kept catching flickers, not reflections, delays. I'd walk past, and a second later my image would follow. A beat too late, like it was lagging behind me or considering its options. "Keep it up," I muttered, "and I'm charging rent." In the parlor, the furniture had moved again. A chair from the east room now sat near the piano. The piano, by the way, was open, and one of the keys was pressing itself down, slowly, rhythmically, like someone playing chopsticks in slow motion. I didn't comment. I didn't sit. Instead, I walked past it like I didn't notice anything, which I'm beginning to think is the mansion's version of garlic to a vampire. I stopped near the back hallway. That's when I saw the archway. I hadn't noticed it before. It led to a room I didn't recognize. A narrow corridor lined with frames. Photographs, black and white, old, yellowed at the edges. All of me. Some were candid, some posed. One was of me standing in the study reading the journal. Another was me asleep in the bathtub. One showed me under the bed, while the eyeless thing crept in behind me. Every angle, every moment. All of them real. All of them impossible. And beneath each frame was a label. Subject 12, Day 2. Subject 12, Day 4, Memory Loss Onset. Subject 12, Briefcase Encounter. Subject 12, Observation Continuing. Observation? I stepped back. "Okay," I said, "so now the haunted house has a film crew. Great, can't wait for the director's cut where I die screaming into a bucket of peaches." That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, I froze. Rule number 9. If the lights flicker 3 times, lie down and pretend to sleep. No matter what. I dropped to the floor like it owed me money and shut my eyes. 3rd flicker. Then footsteps. Bare, slow, closer. A whisper drifted past my ear. Not in words, just breath. Hot and sour, like old leaves and wet copper. I didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't blink. Then something touched my shoulder. Gentle, almost affectionate. Then it mimicked my voice. Still here, still trying. It giggled. Then silence. When I opened my eyes again, the hallway was empty. The pictures, gone. The archway, gone. Just wallpaper again. I stood slowly, trying not to scream into my own hands. I didn't know if what I'd seen was a hallucination or a warning. Both. Either way, the house was watching. And worse, it knew I knew. Back in the study, I found the journal's rule page had been torn out. Completely gone. In its place was a single sheet of lined notebook paper, freshly written in thick red ink. Rules don't matter on day 7. I spent most of the day preparing, which in a haunted mansion means lighting the fire early, blocking every door with broken chairs, and stuffing peppermints into every pocket, like I was about to go trick-or-treating in purgatory. The note in my coat had worn thin from all the times I'd unfolded and refolded it. I knew the words by heart now. You're here to save Lila, don't forget. $1 million, 7 days, no ghosts allowed. That last part was more of a hopeful policy than an enforceable rule. By late afternoon, the air had changed again. You could feel the house waiting, like it had called in sick from haunting the previous few days just to rest up for tonight. Final night. Day 7's ugly little shadow had finally caught up to me. I was pacing the study when I felt a shift in the air pressure, the way your ears pop in an elevator or right before a storm. The fire flared. Not high, bright, just for a moment, like a camera flash. And then she was there, the girl in blue, standing in the corner, not smiling, not giggling, just watching. Her dress was tattered now, hems soaked in something dark. Her eyes looked older, tired, not dangerous, just done. I stood still, reached into my pocket, pulled out the last peppermint. I've got one left, I said gently. You want it? She nodded once. I knelt down and placed the candy on the rug between us. She walked forward, barefoot, silent, and took it. Then she looked up at me. I won't be here tomorrow, she said. Her voice was small but sure. Because of me, I asked before I could stop myself. She didn't answer, just placed something in my hand, a key. Small brass, cold as ice. Then she turned and vanished into the firelight, like a film reel burning away mid-frame. I looked down at the key, etched on it, in tiny letters, attic. Now let me be clear, nothing good ever happens in attics. If you find yourself in a horror story and someone gives you a key that says attic, you smile politely, throw it in the nearest river, and move to Argentina. But I pocketed it anyway. What else was I going to do? Midnight came faster than expected. The house dimmed, even with the fire roaring. The walls felt closer, the corners darker, the silence full. I locked myself in the bedroom, every drawer pushed against the door, the dresser, a stack of old books, 2 folding chairs, 1 globe. It wasn't going to stop anything, but I felt like I should at least try. Then the music started, the ballroom again, but not the same soft waltz. This was slower, sadder, like the house itself was playing its own funeral song. I heard the piano, then the violin, then the voices, not whispers, not growls, just voices, singing, humming, chanting something ancient in a language that made my teeth ache to hear. The lights flickered. Once, twice, I dropped to the floor before the third. The sound of something huge moved through the hall outside. Not footsteps now, just weight, pressure, like a wave rolling through drywall. Then it stopped. Something brushed against the bedroom door. And then came a sound I hadn't heard since day 1. A knock, but not a normal knock. This one was inside the room, behind me, right against the closet door. I turned slowly. The closet was closed. I hadn't opened it since the day I arrived. Another knock. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to move, wanted to scream. Instead, I lay down again, pretended to sleep. That rule still applied, didn't it? Please let it still apply. The knocking stopped. Then something inside the closet whispered, "Almost done." And just like that, silence. No music, no footsteps, no breath. I waited for hours, not daring to move. Eventually, the first faint blue of morning crept through the curtains. And for the first time in 7 days, I let myself believe I might live. I didn't move for a full hour, just lay there on the cold floor, listening to the slow crackle of dawn trickling in through the window. My back ached, my fingers had gone numb, but I wasn't dead, and in this house, that was what passed for a victory. Eventually, I sat up. The closet was still shut. No sign of whoever or whatever had been knocking from inside. I almost thanked it. That's where I was mentally, polite toward closet monsters, peak survival mode. I stood, stretched, and said the one thing no sane person should ever say after surviving a haunted mansion overnight. I think I'm going to make it. That's when the west hallway groaned, loud, deep, like an old door sighing open after years of holding its breath. I froze. The west hallway, the place with that door. Rule number 4 had been very clear. Do not open the door at the end of the west hallway. I hadn't. But someone or something had. I crept out of the bedroom, each footstep a question I wasn't sure I wanted answered. The hallway was darker than it should have been. The sun was rising, but none of it touched this part of the house. The shadows hung in the air like cobwebs, thick and unmoving. At the far end, the black door was wide open. The coat rack I'd wedged across it snapped in half, one piece still dangling from the hinge like a failed last stand. Beyond the doorway was nothing. Not a room, not a staircase, just darkness, pitch black, endless, alive. And from it, a shape emerged. It wasn't fast, it didn't need to be. It just stepped forward like it belonged there. It had my face. Same scruffy beard, same coat, even the same tear in the sleeve from when I ran into the bookshelf. But it wasn't me. The eyes were too wide, the smile too thin. The thing didn't blink. "Hey there," it said in my voice, cheerful and casual. "You made it. Almost sunrise. What a ride, huh?" I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. The rules were gone now. The page had vanished. I didn't know what applied anymore. It walked a few steps closer. "You know, it's funny," it said, still smiling. "Most folks don't make it this far. They break early, open doors, eat the whispering food, talk to mirrors. Not you. You're a fighter." It tilted its head. "Why's that, James? Why not give in?" I swallowed hard. "Because she's still waiting for me." Its smile twitched. "That's adorable." Then it twitched forward, just one step. But it moved like a broken puppet yanked by invisible strings. The movement jolted through the air like static. I raised my hands. "Back off. I'm not playing the final boss fight, all right? Game's over. Sun's up. You lose." It laughed, short, sharp, too loud for the hallway. "Is that what you think this is?" it said. "A game?" "No," I said, "but if it was, your dialogue's too long and you missed the pacing notes." Its smile fell. The air around it changed, thicker, heavier, like a furnace had been turned on behind the walls. It stepped forward again, arms twitching. I pulled the key from my pocket, the one the girl in blue had given me, the attic key. I didn't know why I did it, I just held it up like a talisman. The creature flinched, then hissed, a long, angry sound like steam escaping a cracked pipe. And then it vanished. Gone. The door slammed shut with a bang so loud I stumbled back. A gust of hot wind blew through the hall, knocking portraits off the walls. I hit the ground, covered my head, and waited for the house to come down on top of me. But it didn't. The wind stopped. The light returned. And when I looked up, the black door was gone, not closed, gone. Just a blank wall where it had been. I sat there, panting, staring. Then, without thinking, I pulled the peppermint from my pocket and placed it on the floor. "Thanks, kid," I whispered. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when you realize you've survived something meant to kill you. No creaks, no knocking, no ghost girls asking for candy, just stillness. I woke up in the study armchair, a thin line of sunlight reaching through the window like it wasn't sure it belonged here. For once, the fire had burned out on its own. No strange shapes in the ash, no whispering smoke, no messages scrawled into the soot. I sat there a long time, listening to nothing. Then I stood, walked the halls, and waited for the trap door to open, the wall to bleed, the chandelier to drop, something. But the mansion didn't move. It felt empty, not abandoned, relieved. Like it had been holding its breath for 7 days straight and was finally allowed to let go. I walked through the rooms I'd once avoided, the pantry, the ballroom, even the west hallway where the door had been. Gone. The entire wall had repaired itself. No cracks, no shadows, no trace of that black door or the thing that wore my face. I found the girl's peppermint still sitting on the floor where I'd left it, untouched. Somehow that was the most comforting thing I'd seen all week. I returned to the study and grabbed the journal one last time. Still no rules inside. The pages were blank now, like they'd served their purpose and were ready to rest. I closed it, placed it on the mantel next to the rose and the drawing of Lila. Then I stepped outside. The moment I passed through the front doors, the air changed, warmer, cleaner, like the mansion's curse had a radius and I'd finally stepped beyond it. Waiting just beyond the gate was the rich man in the gray suit. Same perfect hair, same smug smirk. But something in his eyes had shifted. Less calculation, more awe. Like he was seeing a ghost and couldn't decide if he should salute it or run from it. "You made it," he said softly, stepping forward. "No thanks to your murder house," I replied, dusting ash off my jacket. "Pretty sure the plumbing's haunted and the wallpaper has abandonment issues." He smiled, but there was something tight in it. I honestly wasn't sure anyone ever would. I raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe stop offering people deals where the fine print includes house might eat you." "Just a thought." He chuckled. "A fair point." He opened a leather briefcase, not the one from the study, thank God, and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you, a check for $1 million. And," he added, "I've already contacted the experimental treatment facility in Colorado. Your daughter's procedures are paid in full." I froze. "You're serious?" He nodded. "That was the agreement, and I keep my promises." For a moment I couldn't speak, just stood there gripping the envelope like it might vanish if I blinked. She's going to get better?" I asked, barely managing the words. He looked me dead in the eyes. "She'll have the chance. A real one." My knees nearly gave out. I let out a laugh, half joy, half exhaustion, and wiped my face with the sleeve of my coat. "You're not a monster," I said, "but you sure play one on Craigslist." He smiled wider this time. It had to be someone who was desperate for the right reason. I looked back at the house, which had gone completely still. No wind, no shadows. Just the echo of a place finally allowed to sleep. "So, what happens to it now?" I asked. He turned to the mansion. "It's over. The curse is broken. The house is done." I nodded. "Good. Tell it I said thanks, and no offense, but I never want to see it again." He extended a hand. I shook it. Then I walked away. I didn't look back, because for the first time in a long, long time, I had somewhere worth going. We sat on the beach, just the two of us. Lila had insisted we get matching sunglasses, bright red, heart-shaped things that made us look like a pop band from the 90s. I looked ridiculous. She looked perfect. The sun was just starting to dip, the ocean waves rolling in like a steady breath. It was peaceful, real. I kept reminding myself of that. She was wrapped in her favorite blanket, sand stuck to her bare toes, a juice box in hand. No IV, no beeping monitors, no hospital walls closing in, just freedom, just life. "How long do I have to keep drinking these?" she asked, holding up the juice. "Doctor says you need the calories," I said. "Until you're strong enough to start demanding pizza like a proper kid." She made a face. "I want pepperoni." I smirked. "That's my girl." There was a moment of silence then, the kind where words feel too small for what you're holding in your chest. She looked at me. "Did it really happen? The house?" I paused, my hand tightening slightly around the notebook in my lap. "Yeah," I said. "It did." She nodded, like that was all she needed. I'd tried to write it all down over the past few days. Every room, every rule, every time the walls whispered or the painting changed or the lights flickered 3 times. I'd written about the girl in blue, about the man with my face, about the door at the end of the west hallway, and the thing that tried to crawl out of it. I didn't know why I was writing it. Maybe for her, maybe for me. Maybe for the next fool who gets offered too much money to spend the night in a place with rules. But mostly, I think, because I needed to remember. Because the mansion was starting to fade, not just from the outside world, from my memory. I still had the envelope, the $1 million check, signed and cleared. I'd held my breath at the bank, half expecting it to burst into flames when the teller touched it. It didn't. The hospital had started her treatment 2 days later. They say her recovery's going better than expected. They use the word miraculous a lot. I let them. The rich man, his name was Elliot, I learned, called once, told me the estate was closed, the mansion bulldozed, the land donated to a preservation group, the last loose end tied. He sounded relieved, grateful even, like a man who finally got to sleep without something watching him from the mirror. I thanked him. I didn't ask for more. Some things don't need explaining. Later that evening, as the sun slid into the sea and the sky burned orange and purple, Lila curled up beside me and dozed off. I watched her breathe, counted the seconds, let the waves calm my nerves. But even here, under a clear sky, far from that cursed house, I still hear it sometimes. A waltz, soft and slow, hiding just beneath the wind. The sound of 13 chimes echoing faintly in my ears. And once, I swear, I woke up to find a peppermint on the nightstand. I keep it in my coat pocket, right next to the note that saved me. You're here to save Lila, don't forget. I didn't, and I never will.